If we knew the meaning of everything that is happening to us, then there would be no meaning. Idi Amin.
Good evening and welcome to Leading Citizens, a show that showcases South African success stories. These are people of this environment, they succeed here and they continue to do business in South Africa. Firstly, we'll be chatting to someone who's accumulated a significant amount of success over the years through all the adversaries. And then after that, we'll be chatting to a come-up, someone who's well-versed in their sector, but they still have a lot to learn. A lot of people believe that power is built by accumulating a lot of accolades. But tonight we talk to two gentlemen whose roots were just a stone throw away from each other. Now, from these humble beginnings, they've not just only proven to be household names, but have built lasting connections with South Africans.
Tonight, our OG is Jacob Zuma, who went from a skilled stick fighter, a herd boy, to a celebrated MKK'er, who also became a political prisoner. As many know, he had to teach himself how to read and write, but that did not deter his chances of being in the highest office in the land as the President of the Republic of South Africa. For a man who is self-taught, growing up in a small town and is in the heart of the masses, there must have been something about his upbringing that has made him who he is today.
My goodness, you look well-rested. You look very calm. What have you been up to since you left office? I know South Africa wants to know.
When I left office, I've been more in my village.
Right.
Tinkandla. Of course, I've been also to Joburg, Pretoria. I've got the relatives and the children there, but also Durban. So I've been quietly resting at home, and it's very cool and calm. I listen to the birds in the morning. Wonderful, no noise, no hissing sounds, etc. And of course, meeting villagers and people who come to see me down there. But most of the time, it's quiet. I'm doing my reading at the right time and sit and walk. I also have a scooter, a four-wheel scooter that I use at times to cover some little distances. I've been with my children every part of the country, but I also have a growing population of my grandchildren.
What makes you think that South Africans are so drawn to you?
Well, I think that in my own view, and people could have their own views, I relate to their challenges, to their sadness, to their happiness with them. Right. And I'm part of them. I did not want to separate myself from the people. And therefore, I think people understand that. And I think that's why they have love for me, because I have love for them.
Mr. Former President, you have many accolades with your name on them. And I'm sure it brings you such pleasure when you have to look at some of them. Some warm your heart, some lighten up your spirit. But I'm sure there is one that you really look at and you think, this one is really close to my heart.
I visited on invitation the Imo State in Nigeria. That state was recognizing not just the national role, but the continental role, as well as global role. There's actually the entire exhibition that is just about me. In the middle of it, a huge thing was covered, and when they opened, it was a statue of me.
Wow.
So huge. There was, in fact, even a road named after my name. In my country, others would oppose that, I'm sure. A recognition by an African country, a big African country, by Africans as their brother,
wow,
who has played a role in the continent, in the country, and globally. I don't usually get very emotional, but that day I felt this is something.
You seem to have made some selfless decisions, and it took a lot of bravery for you to do that. I can imagine you left your mother behind, you left your family behind, which meant living the life that you know.
Yeah.
Explain to me a little bit the life in exile.
Being made part of MK, my commanders one day called a meeting, and towards the end of the discussion, they said to me, "No, you are going to remain MK, but in the country. You are the breadwinner. We can't make the family suffer." So I said, "No, I don't agree with you." This task that you are giving me, to me, is more serious. It's not about the family, but it's about the nation. I had some comrades who were running taxis, who were part of the network. So I used that network to go to Swaziland. Comrades in Pietermaritzburg had been arrested, Harry Kwala, John Nene, Anthony Klaba, and others. So the comrades there said, "We are not going back." I said, "No, sorry. I cannot go back. There are structures there that are known by me only, nobody else. If I don't go, what is going to happen?" I said, "We are not going." We got arrested, detained in Swaziland. Then we were taken to Mozambique.
Right.
And then I stayed in Mozambique for almost a decade. And I was operating from Mozambique, Swaziland, and Lesotho as one of those who were in the forefront. From Mozambique, I started traveling the world.
Right.
But I also, towards the end of my stay in exile, I stayed in Zambia.
Right.
But I traveled to many, many other countries.
Let me just ask, can you speak Swati, can you speak Portuguese, and all these other languages?
Yes, I can speak Swati a little bit. Portuguese more a little bit, but it's more because it's a complicated language. I was washing the car, a lady walks in, she's one of the princesses with this thing, so I greet her in the morning. It was a Saturday. So I say, "Where are you going when you are so nicely dressed?" This thing they put here with the head of the king.
The sarong, yeah.
She says, "Hi, ngiyasoma, phela nani somi." What?
And in Zulu, that's something else.
Sarah, I didn't talk. I said, "But what's wrong with this girl? How can she say this?" Until I was told in Swati, ukusoma is to propose. Yeah. And I sit in the restaurant and I'm looking. It's written Coca-Cola.
Oh my goodness.
What? Now that's Portuguese. Yeah. Portuguese, to drink is to beber.
Right.
If you say drink.
In Zulu, yeah. Again.
In Zulu. In fact, when I read this, I said, these people are so vulgar. How could they? So that's Portuguese.
Who were your mentors? Who were some of the people that you really looked up to?
President Chief Albert Luthuli.
Right.
Comrade Harry Gwala, not just worked with me, but was one of my teachers in politics.
Right.
Comrade Stephen Dlamini, another leader who was also a trade unionist, a communist, as well as Harry Gwala was also a communist. Comrade Moses Mabida, comrades like Kenny Ndlovu, Billy Naya, Solomon Banjwa, Bruno Mtolo, people like Moses Kodane that you found in the discussions, particularly from those who were communists.
Right.
Oliver Tambo, to a very large extent. But I still looked at Luthuli as the person that I felt he was something else. His style, his approach, his logic when he talked was absolutely amazing to me.
A lot of people don't know that you're actually a huge fan of chess. And you even have tournaments built around that. What's your affinity to chess?
This game gives you the time to think, the tactics, the strategy,
right,
how to defeat your opponent, etc. And I've loved chess for a long time.
Had you ever imagined that you would be president of South Africa, considering who you were and how you grew up?
Not at all. In my growing up, never thought I would be working at the level at which I ended up working.
Yeah.
And secondly, when I was in the ANC, where I was very active, even when I grew up within the ranks of the ANC to some responsible and leadership positions, never thought I would be the president. Even then, I thought I would always play a supportive role.
During your tenure as a president, what are you most proud of that you can say, I really did my best to do this for South African people?
People were dying of AIDS, and we had a vision how to handle it. During my tenure, we were able to raise the lifespan of South Africans to the more than any that was there before. I then established the Planning Commission that will have a chairperson who is a minister, so that it carries the government authority.
Right.
I took Trevor Manuel and made him the chairperson of the commission. In the process of this, establish Pakisa. And Pakisa has done a number of things, including the oceans economy that was never looked at in a concentrating manner. We concentrated to do so.
Some people may look at you and think, yeah, you know, some people look at him as a positive leader, but I actually don't feel that way, because they might feel, you know what, he's part of state looting, he's self-enriching. What would you like to clear?
They should look at reality, not at propaganda. Gandla was an issue that everybody talked about.
Yeah.
Much as there's been talk about Zuma, is corrupt, but nobody has produced evidence. Public Protector investigated what is called state capture, with the Zuma's name attached to a particular family, Guptas.
Yes.
When many South Africans had relations with Gupta, the commission is there. I have been listening very attentively. Somebody who's going to come with the evidence that this is what Zuma did in general or in specific terms, or with the Gupta family. And I'm saying the Nkandla issue became a very specific issue where people could have found something.
Right. Do you think you have led positively and honestly?
I have led positively, honestly. I've respected the people of this country. I've respected what belongs to them. I've done nothing out of order in my life as part of the leaders of this country. Nobody, with all the talk, has produced anything that Zuma has done.
Are there any goals that are outstanding that you have set for yourself that you have not yet achieved?
As a young man growing up, part of the struggle, a freedom fighter, I wanted to see South Africa free. I think I have not yet achieved that goal. We have achieved part of it, the political freedom. We have not achieved economic freedom.
Right.
We missed the proper interpretation of the meaning, what is freedom?
Right.
What is decolonization? We've never talked about it. We thought political, having rights to vote, even if we don't have the rights of the economy, is enough. It is not enough.
You're not the only person from Nkandla or the only person who made Nkandla famous. There's another young man by the name of Robert Marawa. What maybe would you say to him?
He has done very well, and I'm very proud of him. When I see him, I always feel here is Nkandla once again, producing one of the great in sport.
Oh, that's a blessing. I think that's enough.
Thank you very much.
I think I'm a Kunya Lindile Baba Macha.
Our next guest has achieved great things in the sporting fraternity. He's a well-known sports broadcaster and, like the OG, is loved by the people of South Africa for his grace and great sports knowledge. I am talking about Robert Madluputu Marawa.
Robert has been one of my heroes as well. So I'm keen to see him reach the top.
Fantastic.
And I'm wishing him success.
Oh, that's a blessing.
Wow, wow, wow. Siyabonga Nxamalala.
Now, this is one interview that I'm very excited to have. Robert, welcome to Leading Citizens.
Thanks so much, Zuma.
How does that feel to be one of the pioneers to have come out of Nkandla?
Well, I'm humbled, firstly, with all the kind words that have come through from him. I never veered off since day one when I was in Johannesburg, telling people that I'm from Nkandla. When I was in Johannesburg, staying in Yeoville, I think he was there driving his green Camry, staying in Hillbrow, and there was just always this mutual connection between the two of us.
I know your parents have been married for a very, very long time, and you just lost your father not so long ago. Tell me about your relationship with your father.
Very strict. Your Baba was, he wanted you to be the best. He wanted you to toe the line. He wanted you to be active. He didn't want any of his children to be lazy, and that is why we played such a big role helping out in the family business back home. I was always willing to assist. I think we all were willing to assist, because that was being done at home was able to send all of us to school, was able to make us breathe and get clothed. So nobody frowned upon it. But also there's boregil. I mean, what do you do on a farm? So if you have to go and take Sasko bread and put it into see-through packets and so on, that's what you did. And you pack it and you price it and you put it on the shelves, etc. The past two Christmases, we've had that session where we played all his favorite Christmas carols, take out the album there and we wipe it, we put the good old needle on it, and all in his memory, because that's what he did every Christmas, was literally recognize the special family day that it was. People always ask me, what are you doing during the festive season? And I said, from day one when I was born till present, every Christmas, every New Year, I've been in the house. All of us found ourselves just coming back home.
It feels natural to just go.
We'll just go home.
You're not ordinary, man. It's very funny when we were sitting with our groups and we're selecting people and identifying people. When your name came up, not even a single soul said no.
Wow.
Everyone said, of course. What is that like when you've reached that level in your career where people, one, is it credibility? Is it sustainability, consistency, where people just cannot even fault you when it comes to your professionalism?
You can never be that perfect in terms of what you do, but you try and reach a certain level of perfection. And that has always been my key. The reason why I decided to join the industry was to, chart a way for myself that says other people must be influenced positively. Other people must want to be broadcasters. Because when we left Amakaya, there was a journey towards doing law, which didn't quite see itself through, because I did not know that broadcasting could be an option and could be a career. So when that became a possibility, and I worked my socks off to make sure that it is seen as a career, not just as a stepping stone for people that want to be in the limelight for a certain period of time and then they disappear into nowhere, but you carve it as a career. You make other people want to be in television, want to be in radio, and actually sustain that career. And for me, nothing gives me greater joy than to know that people are very receptive of it. And, credibility is the one word that you use, and it has to be there.
You did that, and South Africa backed you up, and we were watching you. But for some reason, somewhere down the line, something just went wrong. What happened there?
The thing is, sometimes you'd want to give it credibility.
Right.
But at times you also think back and say, does it deserve the credibility? Do you deserve to, bring those people's names to the forefront? But somewhere, somehow, people form their little cabals and they want to oust certain people. And obviously, I became a target. They went via my producer. So if you're going to suspend my producer, I'm not going to sit back and say, oh, sheesh, okay, they're going to bring another person in. I'm going to say why. but I take responsibility. I'm the person that's behind the microphone. I then took a stance and said, well, if there is no disciplinary hearing for her, then I will go off air. So I was literally willing to put my career on radio on hold, or to even end my career. They got what they wanted, and a day later, they sent out a whole email telling people that I was no longer part of, the setup here, and that I'd be gone. But then she was back in her job literally the following day, which again proved that I was always the target to try and get me out. The thing is, there's always a greater being that takes charge of life. We don't. Here we are again, enjoying that made this journey for me so exciting in terms of imparting to the nation the love of sport, the love of radio, the love of broadcasting.
Let's talk about this gap this year. You were away, you've worked so hard to build this following. I don't think there's a sports anchor who has a following like you. What were you doing in this gap? How were you feeling? What was happening?
So in that year, it gave me one thing. It gave me an opportunity to be very close to my son. It came in that time, I was able to sift through things that I wanted to do versus things that I had to do. And just, the pleasure of reconnecting with them on a more regular basis was the greatest joy.
Society tends to associate heart attacks, with older people.
Yeah.
It's not a young person's disease. So I was very shocked by that.
I mean, it's a strange phenomenon because when you look at the family, there's no history of heart attacks in the family. So when it happened the first time in 2008, I tried to go back to gym. And that's the irony. Both heart attacks happened in institutions of health and exercise, So Virgin Active was the first place in 2008. And then 2017 in June. Last year, just after I left the Fight Club, I felt it because I knew what a heart attack felt like. As I did that final exercise, when it kind of snapped, and I walked out. I didn't tell anybody, I just walked out. Let me drive myself. I always say to people that if you are going to experience the pain, you'll experience it via a heart attack because you will feel it. It's going to be uncontrollable. You can be the most passive person in the world. But when that thing hits, you're going to scream,
I'm just seeing your strength. It's just crazy to me right now. Your biggest regret?
I don't believe in regrets at all. I've been given so many opportunities to live. I believe that there's a purpose. And I always ask, and I ask God to say, clearly, you want me to live. And clearly, can I offer myself to you so that you can take my hand, guide me to that path that you believe I will make a big difference in? It doesn't really matter where you grew up.
Right.
It is ultimately what it is that you want. And nobody will feel sorry for you, neither are you entitled to. But if you fight hard enough for that you want, hey, farm boy to big city, anything is possible.
Now, tonight's episode has proven that it's not about where you come from or what you've accomplished. It's actually about the respect and the connections that you've built with the people who are captivated by what you do. Join us again next week as we profile more of these inspirational individuals you really don't want to miss out. Good night.